Hello, this is Buildershed here, and today we're going to be talking about Mac versus Linux, more specifically, why I why I believe Linux is better than Mac, and why I believe you should prefer Linux over Mac. So let's get right into it. So Mac Mac and Linux are both Unix-like systems. Mac Mac comes from a BSD line, while Linux is plain out just Unix like, if you know what I mean. So there are many things that drag people towards Linux, and many things that drag people towards Linux, and others that drag people towards Mac. But here's why I say you should, if you're thinking about getting a Mac, you should get a laptop. And if you're thinking about getting a MacBook or something, you should. Here's why I say you should try to get like a Linux laptop, or try to get some laptop and put Linux on it instead. So let's get into it. So let's start off with the first thing: customization. There's more customization on Linux than there is on Mac. And I think that's self-explanatory to a lot of people. In fact, you can literally change the desktop environment, the shell itself. You don't have to be stuck with the same old shell or desktop environment like the entire time you're on the OS. Linux, you can just go from KDE to GNOME to entire own window managers, if you know what I mean. Well, let me show you, like, hold up. Can't forget that. So here's like Mac. What can you do on a Mac OS? Like in customization wise, of course you can change the background. You can add some folders. You can do that on literally any operating system. You can have this go up and down, like if auto high, if you know what I mean. Do that in practically any operating system. You can you can turn on dark mode. You can do that in a lot of operating systems, including Linux. In you can rearrange these, I think. Yeah. But what can you not do? You can't have the Windows tile. You can't make this go on. I think you can't. You can't make this go from here to here like a panel. You can't put this up here. You can't do it like this and have this little icon over here be over here. There's so many things with Mac OS you can't do customization wise, people. Go on Linux. Let's see what people have done. Now tell me this is not. Now tell me, like, is this the type of stuff that you can do on a Mac? Heck no, you can't. You cannot do this type of stuff on a Mac OS. You cannot do this on an iMac. You can't do this on Macintosh. I could literally demonstrate some right now. Let me pop open. I have Dolphin on here. Not the emulator. No. Let me just pop up in Nautilus. Let's go to pictures and let's go to application style. For example, it's practically split between GTK and Qt themes, if you know what I mean. So, there are of course going to be some differences. So, here for GTK, I got a Mac OS type theme. And you could just do that. Now this looks on Windows 7. Which, not gonna lie, looked pretty dang good for a operating system, if you know what I mean, peeps. XP Zoom? Let's see what that looks like. And that's one reason to like go from Linux to like go from Windows to Linux to just the customization. Now, that's literally any reason to choose Linux. Customization is full on. Like, screw it. Mac OS 9. Let's try that. Literally, Mac OS 9 theme. Like, y'all never even experienced Mac OS 9. Yo, y'all are so trapped. Emacs. What? Yeah, I don't know what the heck it got Emacs from, yo. For now, I'm gonna set on my White Sir Dark Solid theme, so it's gonna look all good. You can do this with QT themes as well. Like, let me head back, take a turn around, and switch to. Let me think. Oxygen. Now look at this. It's a bit different, obviously. It's been more on the old school side of things. You want to go even more old school? Just go with here. It looks like old Windows for some reason. Fusion, of course. Now that's gonna look cool. Or go full on Oxygen, old school. Air, I guess. Fluent. Oxygen. Like, this is the cool stuff about people. You could do some nice customization here. Change cursor as well. There's nothing to prevent you neither. So, back to this. So, that's basically one thing. If you're not too customization savvy, you could still, and you like the macOS theme, you could still recreate the macOS theme pretty dang well on Linux. So there's nothing stopping you in the terms of customization, obviously, and looks. Nothing stopping you at all. The next thing I want to point out is that with Linux, you got package managers. You don't need to download a DMG file off of the internet like you have to do on macOS or .pkj and install, like how do you install an exe file. Though I'm pretty sure you can do something similar to install a PKJ and PKG, not PKJ, it's PKG on Debian and Red Hat based distros, and you download those rpm.db files. You know what I mean? But on Linux, you can just do sudo apt install on package manager or sudo merge -a on Gentoo. Like, you know what I mean, peeps. So, yeah. And on to the next reason. With Linux, it's open source. Free and open source. You can screw around with it as much as you want, peeps. Free as in costless. Free as in you could do whatever the heck you want. This means tampering with the code of your OS if you want. Like, this means screwing around with everything. Tell me if I'm wrong, peeps. Tell me if I'm wrong. Please do. I heavily appreciate constructive feedback, but please tell me if I'm wrong. Like, in all honesty, please do. So, unlike Mac, you can't screw around with the code. In fact, Mac is more closed in. It's extremely closed in. like here, your iOS right here, your iPhone operating system, really closed. No, Mac OS. No. Android and iOS at the bottom. Mac OS in the middle. I mean, Mac OS right here. Windows right here, and Linux right here. Bottom to top wise, going from most power you have to going from least to most power you have over your device. There is nothing stopping you from using Linux, and with Linux, there's almost nothing stopping you from screwing around with as much stuff as you want. And even more with Linux, when you're talking about since Linux is free and open source, as well as most distros, you can look at the code and you could be confident that you're not being spied on. unlike Mac, which is more likely spying on you, Linux more than likely is. In fact, a lot of Linux distros do an opt-in instead of an opt-out for collecting information to help, like your Linux distro, like to help your Linux distro get better at code. There's, like Mac, I'm not even sure if they even ask you. They'll just go roll around your information. Even worse, they'll probably sell it to your medical company or something. Next thing you know, your doctor's going to be asking you about your search, your browsing history, and why the heck there's a bunch of porn on your Macintosh. But I'm joking about that part, but you never know. Like in like a decade, you're probably going to start witnessing crap like that, if you know what I mean. Jokes aside, Macs are spying on you. And Apple and other big tech companies are known quite well for doing more with your personal information than some like Canonical would ever do. Canonical, as far as I know, Canonical, if they ever have your personal information, as far as I know, they probably just use it more for good to help out the OS, like see what the heck's wrong with the OS. They only probably collect stuff like what's inside here and not the name that is on your birth certificate, if you know what I mean. So, and the final point I want to make is that with Linux, that Mac, you have to, Macs, unless you're doing a Hackintosh, which you need some specific things for a Hackintosh. If you're doing a Mac, if you want a MacBook Air or something, you're going to be paying a lot more for something. You're going to be paying like $1,000 or $2,000 for something that's as powerful as a laptop you get for $100 or $200. It's literally a big waste of money just for something that looks great and not even much software supported on it. A lot of your proprietary software supported on it, like Photoshop, yeah, and there are plenty of alternatives to that on Linux. You don't need Photoshop, Adobe programs, or Microsoft Office Live. I'd advise using LibreOffice for your office needs, and GIMP and stuff for GIMP and Inkscape for other stuff. And I heavily advise switching over to free and open source software because you can screw around with it. You know what the heck's inside, and you're not throwing much money at it, if at all. Most free and open source software you can donate to them, but you don't need to donate, if you know what I mean, to be able to use it. You can use it without throwing the money. So, you all with Apple, like I said, you're paying like $1,000 or $2,000 for something that's as powerful as something you can get for $100, just for quote unquote bling. Like you can easily run a macOS in a VM anyways. Like there's in games, like who the heck uses a macOS for game? Who uses a Mac for gaming? No one that I know of, and there may be more games on Mac that are natively supported to Mac than Linux. But on Linux, we have Proton on Steam, and we can run a lot more games when you count in games that are runnable with Proton. It's like this Mac natively supported Mac games, native supported Linux games, native supported Linux games plus Proton, all the way up there. Like it's like Mac can't compete when you're talking about Proton, And also, of course, with Linux, you can just screw around the computer itself too. Put a new GPU in there. You can do that with Windows too. Don't worry. Now, if you got proprietary software, you spent good money on proprietary software. Maybe you spent good money on Microsoft Office. Maybe you spent like a couple $100 on Microsoft Office. You don't want, and you're like, I don't want to waste my money. Well, of course, you can always switch to LibreOffice, and I always advocate that. Though, you did spend good money on it, so I'd probably advise I'd still advise switching to LibreOffice. I'm sorry that you spent like $200 on something that's probably spying on you in the end. Though if you have to use it for work, that's kind of more justified. Like if they don't want you using something like LibreOffice, they really want you to use Microsoft Office or Adobe programs. I'd say your reason for using those is justified pretty well. But if you use it for casual use, then yeet those out the window and download LibreOffice and GIMP. Well, for Adobe Creative Cloud type stuff, look up free alternatives to them. Like a video on YouTube discussing free alternatives. Though if you're needing proprietary software, and a lot of proprietary software does not run Linux, so there's a good amount that do. If you need proprietary software like Adobe products or MS Office, like, I'm going to tell you this. First of all, you got two options. One, install Linux, but to get a VM going for your work needs, but I'm not sure if your work, but I'm not going to guarantee that the program's going to work in a VM. Or two, just get a Windows laptop. Like, I'm going against the Linux community on this one though. Well, I'm probably gonna backlash that coming straight at me from them. But there isn't though. If you really need to use proprietary software for work and stuff, then just get a Windows laptop, like an okay Windows laptop, and just dual boot Linux. Dual boot Linux on it. That's all you need to do. Dual boot Linux. If it's not your employer's computer, dual boot Linux in Windows. So basically, I think I've already explained my reasoning for why you should choose Linux over Mac, in my honest opinion. I'm thinking about Macs. They're overpriced, and you might as well just get Linux instead of macOS if you really want a Unix-like OS. This is Buildershed here. Hope to see y'all next time. See ya! If y'all like this type of content, make sure to drop a like. If you wanted to see more of this content, make sure to subscribe. If you don't like this content, or specifically this video, drop a dislike. And it'd be heavily appreciated if you were to also drop a comment explaining why you disliked the video and some issues, also known as constructive feedback. I'll see y'all next time. See ya.